I think we'll go ahead and get started. And my name is David Glassman. I'm president of Eastern Illinois University, and I want to welcome everybody here today. Thank you for coming. And the purpose of today is to really talk about the opportunity that is existing relative to the FCC Spectrum auction, what that auction is, and how that could or could not affect Eastern Illinois University. There's a couple points that I want to bring out first, and that is whether or not EIU will participate in this auction to sell or not to sell our spectrum has not been decided upon. There has been no decision taking place. In fact, I'm a strong believer in informed decisions, particularly major decisions that will have implications both short-term and long-term. And so the forum today is to just become acquainted with what the auction is, also to hear your thoughts and your comments that you might have relative to this particular opportunity, and so that we're all, principally on the same page of what this auction is, what it means, what EIU could do or could not do relative to the auction, and what would be the implications if EIU did become a part of it. There would be obviously no guarantee that anything would be sold, that is the spectrum, or what would happen if the spectrum was sold from EIU. Again, before you write that we have made a decision and we've just sold our spectrum, that is not the case. This is simply to discuss that this is out there. The FCC has been dealing with this issue for the last couple of years. There have been some legal issues that have been involved in this, and what they're trying to do is clear spectrum for the digital age that we live in, to try and get more and more of the spectrum available to the digital items that we use and the various digital means that are out there. How I'm going to start this today is by introducing to you Jack Neal, our general manager of WEIU-TV. And I'm asking him to just once again go over, many of you are familiar with what the spectrum is. You may have read the letter that Jack had communicated to our university community. Much of that was picked up in the Charleston Mattoon newspaper, and he'll reiterate some of that, and if there are questions relative to the auction itself, he should be able to elucidate some answers for you. So that's how we'll start, and then we'll open it up to any questions or comments or thoughts that you might have relative to the auction itself and EIU and our WEIU-TV bandwidth.
Well, I should be able to, but this is a governmental event, so who knows? It has changed a lot in the last couple of years of studying it. Basically, as President Glassman said, the purpose on the part of the FCC and originally Congress is to clear spectrum for cell phone providers and Wi-Fi and things like that. Obviously, we're in a very connected environment. And right now, where they're looking to obtain that from would basically be a good part of the UHF TV spectrum. And that's where we are. We're on Channel 50, which truly is sort of like that digital beachfront place that you hear about. There's a lot involved in all of this. As President Glassman says, this is literally the very first step to learn what all is involved, where are we likely to go, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. If we were to somewhere down the road, and this will not be finalized until probably late summer, early fall, I would guess right now, early fall, maybe even mid-fall. But the options right now will be to potentially offer up and sell that spectrum, sell that frequency, if there were to be an offer on it from the FCC, and we don't know that would happen. To possibly cooperate with another commercial or non-commercial TV station in the area, and to share a frequency. Again, that would be pretty much invisible to our viewers, but is an option for stations to do that. There are options for us to change our frequency and drop to a lower channel on our own, basically, and offer up. There's again an opportunity to move to a low UHF or a VHF frequency and sell at a much lower price, obviously, that right to that channel. all kinds of options out there, a lot of changes that are going to make or happen in that process, I'm sure, as it progresses. And it is very much of a moving target. But for me, I really, and I applaud President Glassman and EIU for getting this group together. You know, I've heard from a lot of you, especially in the last 24, 36 hours since this became more news. And I really appreciate the chance to hear what the people who actually use WEIU have to say. You know, we have all kinds of people that are obviously students. We have a number of Newswatch students. I've heard from a number in the last day or so. We have viewers, we have members, which is really important, being, you know, a public broadcaster. We have staff, we have EIU staff, and this is really the first chance I've had to hear from everybody in one setting, hopefully hear from everybody, you know, what your thoughts are, what's your reaction to all of this. Primarily, I know most of you have read what I've already put out there in the letter, so I won't go too far beyond that if that's okay. And I would encourage us to see if we can maybe get some questions from the audience. Sorry about that.
Would you like to hear more about the auction and how the auction actually works? Because it's a very different kind of auction. It's a dual auction. It starts out as a reverse auction and then goes to a forward auction. And if that would be of interest to you, I'd have Jack tell you a little bit more about that so that you understand what the process is. You heard this large number that came out from the FCC that was reported in the paper, this $105 million. And what those large numbers are being given to all of the institutions or that organizations that have licensees in the area that they're looking for. And that's to entice people to become interested in the auction itself. That's not the price that they are saying we are willing to pay you right now. That's where it starts, and then it goes down from there. Now, it's a difficult concept because we always think about being in an auction and you have some price that they started at, and you know, you have somebody who really can talk very, very fast. You know how it works, and it keeps going up and up and up, and then if it reaches that reserve price, then you say sold, and so on, and you go out from there. So I'm going to have Jack explain to you exactly what we mean, or what the FCC means by a reverse type auction.
Yeah, it is sort of a strange combination. In our case, the TV broadcasters will be a part of the reverse auction. In our case, the opening bid will be about $104.8 million. Amazing number, obviously. It really, if it were to get to a point of having a bid, and we don't know that it will be much less than that. But again, we're going to have rounds. This will start March 29th. Right now, we'll have rounds, maybe up to 60 rounds, separated by a few hours for each round, going probably a couple of months, that this bidding process will happen. And again, the bids will drop each round. What the FCC is trying to do with that is acquire the sort of their critical mass, whatever they have decided that they need for amount of frequencies and spectrum in whatever locations that they're looking for. And as stations drop out, and they will each round, at some point, you know, it's 105. Say our next one's 100,000. We say, well, you know, we were in it maybe at 105, but 100,000's too low. We're out of it. We pull out at that point in time. Stations are going to do that until they get to the point and drop low enough that the Commission, FCC, has the quantity of spectrum they need. That's sort of the reverse auction. That will happen again, probably over a couple months, we think. Sometime during the reverse auction, to make it even more confusing, because they're not waiting until after the reverse auction is done to start, they're going to have the forward auction. That's a traditional auction where they're going to take the frequencies in the geographic locations that they've acquired, sort of repackage them in sort of blocks that work for cell phone providers and things like that, and they're going to start auctioning that off in a more traditional auction to, again, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, that kind of a group, a company in the world. And that will happen maybe over the course of a few weeks, maybe a month. When both of these are done, both things have happened. Right now projected late summer. Most people I talk to, again, say maybe mid-fall. When that's all done, we'll actually know, countrywide, system-wide, what's been sold and what the numbers were and all that kind of thing. Again, at any time during this process, we can, if we've gotten involved, we can pull out. We can say, no, number's too low, we're done. End of story. We don't go back in, we don't have any obligation at that point in time. Let's see, what else makes sense to pass along at the...
Well, I'm going to start with your first question.
Okay, there you go.
We have not orchestrated this.
Obviously.
But the first question that...
On the road, actually.
The first, on the road. First question that I think is in the minds of many people is, well, what happens if we don't sell it? We don't go into the auction, we're not involved in it. Do we get to keep our spectrum? Do we get to keep broadcasting as we normally have been, and we're just left alone? And the answer to that really is not really, and that's what you can explain.
Exactly. Yeah, everything will change to some extent anyway. Like I mentioned, we're on a really nice channel, 50, if you're in that world. So when this is all done, sometime late summer, early fall, the commission is going to take a look at what they have, decide who's going off the air, and then they're going to repack probably, last guess, 800 to 1,200 TV stations that are remaining on the air in lower channels. Some of us will be in a lower UHF frequency, 20, 23, 25, something like that. Some will be in the VHF range, which is 2 through 13. We'll figure that out then. At that point in time, each station will have supposedly 39 months to rebuild their facility, new transmitter, new transmission line, new towers in some cases, probably not in our case though, antennas though. And 800 to 1,200 stations will probably be changing frequency and doing that whole process. So even if we do nothing, many things will change. And our frequency will be different, will be lower. You probably won't know that because we'll most likely still identify as channel 51, which we haven't been since the HD rebuild, but again, it's brand new. So regardless what happens, there will be change over the course of, starting in about a year, a little less than a year, and for a few years after that. Second question?
I'll
All right.
let the forum ask their question.
Any other questions? Yes?
If that does happen, if you move to a different frequency and you need new equipment.
Good question.
who pays?
At this point in time, it depends on whether we're involved or not. If we were to opt in to be involved and not get a bid, not accept a bid, that would be paid for 90% by the U.S. government, the other 10% from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, in our case, since we're a non-commercial station. If we were to sort of make a change on our own and again, opt in and say we'll change frequency, we'll go to VHF rather, then we pay. So therefore, you really need to be careful before you're opting into something like that. Okay? Other thoughts, questions? Yes?
To what extent is the basic mission of WEIU affected depending on which one of these outcomes?
Very good. Again, the mission of WEIU being a public TV station is sort of, that's two fronts. Obviously, we're part of the university. We have a newscast that trains a lot of students every year in the news world. That obviously would continue. It would be different. Doing that without a transmitter or without being TV is different to some extent than it would be currently. That would have to be looked at. That's one of the things that the president is considering. The other mission of being a public broadcaster, if we were to let go of the frequency, sell the frequency, there would be no PBS from us. However, obviously there are PBS stations that still are in this market. Depending whether you're watching on air, on cable, or satellite, 3 or 4 of us. So that would continue, but not with us. We would encourage, or we we believe we would be able to create the same local programs and more so as we do now, but to put them out there again through other vehicles other than broadcasting. Okay? Yes?
I have one question and one comment, I guess. If we did drop to a lower frequency in the VHF band, would we carry with it all the cable television requirements that must carry us with us?
The must carry will follow us whether we're on this frequency, another frequency, or even a shared channel. If you were to share with station WABC somewhere, we still would both have to be carried. So that's good.
Do we have an advantage by being out here pretty much away from the urban areas? There's going to be less bidding on our frequency, I suspect.
Right.
Downtown Chicago.
And who knows how that's going to go. However, to me, logically, East Coast, all kinds of activity. LA, San Francisco, tons of it. Down to Florida, a lot going on. Chicago, yeah, I can anticipate. We're in this weird little spot that, is there a lot or is there not? There, according to the FCC, Terre Haute of all places is going to be a place they need.
Well, if they repack, we're likely to just pretty much remain the same, since
Yeah.
we're not repacking with Chicago.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yes?
I assume if you drop the public broadcasting, then the funding that we currently have would probably cease. I don't know what percentage that is, but I know there's grants from the
Right.
corporation.
The community service grant, yeah, that would go away. We would no longer be a public broadcasting station. We would not get funding from CQB, correct? Yes?
If we opt in to the option, you said we can dial out at any time.
Yes.
Does that include if we stay in until the FCC cuts off the first round of this?
Yes, we can stay in until, if we're in it, we can stay in until the bid goes lower than we will accept. At that point, we pull out. If we were not paying attention and we stayed in and, whoops, it dropped another, $10 million, technically, that would be a commitment if you stayed in, but you have the option of dropping out at any time up until then. The only thing you can't do is drop out after the bid's gone there and say, well, I don't think I want to do that after all. That's all.
That's what I did. So
Right.
once the FCC says we're done with the reverse bid, then you're locked in.
You're locked in once the bidding has stopped for your area. Yeah, exactly.
And the second one is bidding, the forward option,
Right.
that really has no effect on us.
Correct. Nothing at all with broadcasters. That will be just whoever's buying this spectrum, they will be bidding the numbers up and bidding against each other. That's exactly. That's where the commission and the Congress is hoping to make their money. Yes.
If you were to sell the ability to broadcast a signal out, is there another means by which you could submit programming to MediaCom and Consolidated
Right.
for redistribution?
What we can't do is it would not be a PBS feed. Can we give them our local programs, News Watch, that kind of thing? Absolutely. And that'd be something that I would anticipate right now. In fact, we program Your 13 on Consolidated. That's one of our channels. So that would certainly be continuing, and I would imagine it would be a fairly easy agreement to have to get them out on the local cable systems. And streaming. I mean, obviously, a lot of my business now, I've been in this business 42 years, and I'm used to antennas and transmitters, but streaming is becoming more and more the way millennials watch TV. My kids don't spend a lot of time in front of the big tube that I did. They, using on their handheld device. So that's an option as well. It's different. This really is just a number of choices that have to be made. I mean, there's not really right. There's not really wrong. They're just various options. Okay. Yes.
Do you have any idea of the percentage of the viewership that is accessing this over the air?
Over the air, probably 10 to 20%. It's hard since we don't get Nielsen ratings here. It's not an inexpensive thing to deal with. Historically, pretty much around the country, it'll be 10% in most areas. We're more rural, so I would think, doubling that is certainly fair. So somewhere in that 10 to 20% range. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get my comment in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, not that important to start with. Second thing is, the comment is, if we drop to a lower channel, we're still going to be on the air, or could potentially on the air, and we're going to be taking up wide space on the spectrum.
6 megahertz, yep.
They're never going to have enough space on the spectrum to handle all the stuff that goes on now on the computers and this and Facebook that and whatever. And we're constantly out of that. It seems to me that if we gave it all up, check my logic on this, if we gave up the spectrum frequency of any kind, 10 years down the line, they're going to be back saying we need to buy more spectrum. I've been around a while and gone through that several times already with low power broadcasting and a bunch of other things. And they tend always to run out of spectrum space. And they always say we have more than we'll ever use, and 2 weeks later they're saying we're clogged up. And I suspect if anybody's like I am and take their internet off the satellite, that clogs up even now, about, I don't know, twice a month maybe. So is it logical to assume that if we hang on to spectrum, we'll have even a better sale down the line, and in the meantime, we'll be competing with Channel 10 and 12 and 3 and so on? If we go to
The FCC will tell you no, but they have a horse in this race. I would not argue with that assumption. When it would be, who knows? But they're not making more spectrum. It doesn't exist. The only thing they really can do is they can get better as they go higher and higher in previously unusable and unused spectrum. They can get better at making it work. But no, it's not going to.
They haven't the other times yet.
No, I mean, I would argue, you're talking what, 50, 60% a year. This increases, the needs for spectrum increase.
I read several things that said this new one that we're doing now is for first responders, fire trucks, police, FBI. Is that true? Is it?
That I hadn't heard.
You haven't heard that?
I hadn't heard.
Now,
Yes.
part of this is so that they can take a solid chunk of spectrum and dedicate it to first responders nationwide.
Yeah, that's
So
the
that, that is part of why they're doing this, is so that they can take a small piece of it and say, from this end of the country to this end of the country, this spectrum is used for emergency services. That way they're all using the same equipment, and they're not having to deal with people not being able to talk to each
I
other.
would only note that that's the same argument they used several other times prior to now. Always first responders, which we have a weakness for, soldiers.
We have heard that before. That's true. And Dennis is one of my resident expert engineers. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Yes?
The defined real estate beachfront property that Channel 59 represents, just any influence over where you went and you have to lower the frequency, or you just at the mercy of the LCC and their assignment, whatever it is.
Technically, it means that they would not be allowed to put us in the VHF band. Technically, we would be in a lower UHF channel, which is probably preferable since it's slightly better. Yes?
I guess a couple questions. Second one for the president. Jack, can you, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around what this looks like down the road from a student standpoint.
You're not alone.
Can you speak to what you thought about this when you guys have a little more in my head? What sort of student opportunities do you see at the end of this? Let's say if we turn off the camera.
I don't know that I have a lot of answers for that. From where I sit in the TV place, nothing really changes. Nothing really goes away. What does change, and I can't quantify what that means, is now instead of putting that newscast, especially on a TV signal, you're putting it on online or streaming or whatever that happens to be. And where in my world the production of it, absolutely the same. Nothing changes at all. For how the student does their job, absolutely the same. How that works for them down the road when they're putting a resume together, you know, there probably is an effect. I think there's some value to them to having worked at a real live broadcast station. I think there's value. They will tell, I mean, I've heard that from them all along, and I agree with that. I can't decide how much that is, though. That's something that Dr. Glassman will have to consider. Yes?
Second question would be for Dr. Glassman. Is there, if we would do this, Dr. Glassman, is there your confidence that the money will stay in Charleston or get it
Well, it's obviously an excellent question, and one that I can't answer completely today with full sense of confidence and knowing that answer. The license is with the university, but if we were to sell that, there may be discussions that take place, and it might be a matter for attorneys in the future. So I wish I could tell you one way or the other with great confidence, but I don't have that confidence at this level. I know what I'd prefer.
Yes.
Do you know what the net gain or loss would be from losing the PBS station? I don't know what the CPB grants are for us, and what is that?
There we go.
Yeah, if we lose the PBS side, what are we financially?
Changes every year, but roughly, what, 700,000 or so a year if most years. Yeah, and that would go away.
But then there would be less maintenance for equipment.
Less maintenance, less expense. Obviously, we spend about $250,000 a year on PBS program membership, for PBS membership to acquire programming. Transmitter, and again, Dennis can probably answer some of that. Transmitter maintenance is not inconsequential. They spend some time, tower crews, and there are not a lot of them in the country. It's not inexpensive to have them come and do what they do. The good news, I guess, either way, is if we stay on the air and change frequencies, that transmission plant is going to be paid for by CPB. If we sell the frequency, obviously you're saving money there too. So again, some of the things that need to be considered before deciding to go.
Does the license get renewed?
No,
It's the one you pay for instead?
that would be, I'm sorry, let me, the license
The
for,
UHF license we have right now for that higher channel?
Yeah.
That's.
that would be done. That would go
How
with.
now? Do we continue to pay for that?
We don't pay. That's the license itself is granted by the FCC to serve the community and the public interest. No charge, which is sort of interesting that has developed that way. Because now they're getting to sort of monetize that. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the current financial situation at the station? How badly is this money needed for
I would probably defer to Dr. Glassman, because it's not money that's really needed for the station. Other than the fact it's our license, it doesn't really have, strangely, a lot to do with the station. It's an opportunity for that spectrum and the owners of that spectrum, in our case, the board here at Eastern, to become involved and monetize that. So, anything you want to add to that? Okay, because I mean, there's really, it wouldn't make a huge difference on our end, I guess.
We're absolutely committed to the educational value of our radio TV educational model that we have on campus. So it's not going to affect it one way or the other, whether we were to sell it or not. The commitment is there at its highest level. We have national recognition for our communications area, journalism area related to WEIU-TV, and that will always continue.
Yes.
I've got a question. If you participate in the auction, and when the auction starts, I believe we have a silent period.
We actually enter that
Public
Tuesday.
will ask, and can you talk about how long it is and what can or cannot be said during the silent period?
Absolutely. I can talk about it now. I can't talk about it as of 5 o'clock Tuesday. That's when it starts. It basically, the reason for it, honestly, is to keep anti-collusion laws working. What they don't want to do, and it makes sense, is have me talk to my counterpart over somewhere else and say, we could get more money if we did the following. So what that means is from now until the whole thing is done, sometime this fall, I can't stand here and do this kind of thing. The president and the board can have the conversations they need to have. They can, discuss where that needs to go. But other than saying, yes, there is a spectrum option, and either yes, we are involved, or no, we aren't involved, I can't really go beyond that. The really weird part of that is we will not even know if we're involved, or any station that's involved. They will not know if their bid was accepted until the whole thing is done as well. So we really, once Tuesday hits, won't have anything that we can really talk about, won't really have a lot of information until we either know that we were involved and got selected, we were involved and weren't selected, or we're moving to channel A, B, or C. Yep, yes.
One thing that I'd like to add about that silent phase, because that's a question that keeps coming up relative to people who have been contacting me. In the silent phase, we obviously can't discuss anything, but at the same time, we have the ability to, till this auction starts, to not be involved in the auction at all. Okay? We have that availability. So we are able to hear from the public much longer than Tuesday or Monday, whatever, at 5 o'clock. And so we are going to continue listening and providing and hearing your comments as we make our considerations relative to the auction. We just can't speak about it or answer some particular questions that you might have. That's why we're trying to have the forum and get the questions answered on the front end. Yeah.
On what basis then would you decide to pull out if you were entered in the first place? I mean, if you can't know what's going on during the silent period, on what basis could you use that to decide, oops, let's get out?
Well, the university is trying to determine at this time, exactly what are all the factors that are involved, the educational factors, the community factors, the outreach factors, what is the value of our spectrum relative to the cost, what is it really worth, in order to determine whether or not we want to participate in the auction at all. And those assessments are still being made, and as we hear from more constituents, and we're getting calls from constituents, and I'm getting emails from constituents daily, and they're going both directions. I have people saying, sell today, we can still do everything that we need to do. And I'm hearing from a number of alums saying, boy, being part of WEIU-TV, broadcasting as it has been over the last umpteen years, is what I owe my entire career and has been transformational in my ability to have a successful, lively, and productive career. And this is important information to us as we review all this information.
I think from the comments that you don't yet know what level you would bow out of the auction if you participate.
At this point right now, I do not know what level, what amount we would bow out if it got to that amount. I don't know.
I would just like to make a comment. Bob talked about the millennials and what the percentage was. I'd like to talk about all of the people in like 9 counties that are probably 65 and older, and all they watch,
Exactly.
I was thinking about my mom and all her friends and how upset they are. But there is a large percentage, and I don't know if you know what the percentage is, of all of these people in our community that watch WEIU, and that's all they watch. And it's because they have little rabbit ears, or they get cable, and they can't afford the internet, and they're not going to be part of this group that watches anything through a computer or a smartphone or anything like that. And I know that we're all about community, and I just don't want that group of people to be forgotten about. I would still like for us, Eastern, to provide a service to that large group of people that really supports WEIU.
Definitely, I appreciate the comment. To answer a little bit of the question, that's right now our highest demographic. Probably, I would imagine, somewhere 60 to 70% of our audience fits into the 65 or older. That also, by far, is our largest percentage of members. So that is something that I know the president will be considering as they make that determination. But yeah, that's something that all public stations that may or may not be involved in this they're very aware of, because as much as you look at the future and what the future will be, you don't want to get rid of where we are in many cases the sole provider of that kind of programming. So appreciate that. Yes. Sorry, my eyes are not what they used to be. Yes. Very much appreciate that. Yep, yes. We appreciate the comment, and yes, there is a difference, obviously, with having a station and not having a station. So, yes.
I'd like to say that WEIU is the reason why I came here, and that if it was a live stream, I would not have chosen Eastern. So that is the only reason why I came here, so it means a lot to me.
Excellent. We're keeping all of this information, trust me. Yes.
I'd also like to echo her comment on the law we graduated in 2006 and chose Eastern because it's a real television station. So I would not come here either if it wasn't for that service or the television.
Fantastic. Yes.
You touched upon a timeline in which that the television broadcasting is taking place, just like broadcasting, radio. What kind of time frame are you looking at? You touched upon a little bit. What kind of time frame are you looking at?
For which part of the change?
To make the change, like the changes that you touched upon.
If
That we're going to be, you said something.
If we're going to change channels?
Anyway, we're going to have to do some changes anyway.
Well, as far as the digital, I think the entire system has been working to become multi-platform through the last several years, and that will continue. And as people my age get older and older, there's probably going to be less use of actual television, broadcast television, and more use of streaming or other sources. The actual number of years that's going to take, I think it's going to play itself out. I mean, even the people my age, we're not planning on going away quickly, so we're going to be watching TV for a while. Next. Missing somebody here? Again, the eyes are not great. Yes.
I was gonna say, if we don't participate in the auction, how would we feel about the success of WEIU as an on-air station
If we don't participate as far as,
we keep our channel, move to another channel?
Oh.
How do we feel about that panning out successfully?
moving to another channel doesn't bother me other than, and Dennis may have a reaction to this one as well, the idea that 800 to 1200 TV stations are going to change channels when there, I think, are 2 transmitter manufacturers, a couple antenna manufacturers, and 15 high tower crews in the country. This is not going to happen in 39 months. In my unofficial opinion, it's probably going to be closer to 5, 6, 7 years. When that happens, the real downside for me is every station, most stations at least, but at least we will be off the air for some period of time when that transition happens. We have to decommission a transmitter, an antenna, probably take transmission line down, and then again rebuild, put transmission line back up. We're in a part of the country that you didn't know it a week or so ago, but you can now. It's not fun for tower crews to get up there at 500 feet or so. So that, will have some effect, and it will be off the air at some period of time, or for some period of time. On the broadcast side, we'll still be there on cable and satellite, but broadcast there will be some sort of effect, yeah.
I think that was the 39 months that he was looking for.
Oh, okay,
His
all right.
question was about
That 30,
the
I got you.
The timeline between being told you're being repackaged and
And they're still holding, they're saying that's gonna be 39 months for everybody, but I am taking bets now. And anyone wants to jump on that one. Yes?
He said that if we engage in the auction, that there's a higher, if I understood correctly, there's a higher chance if we do engage in the auction of being moved to a lower UHF frequency? Is that?
No, the big difference with that is if we were to decide to, we would accept a change to another frequency, we pay the price for the transmit. If we are in the auction and whether we're chosen or, well, if we're not chosen, that repacking would be paid for by the feds.
But would we be able to keep in that frequency but a lower channel of that frequency?
Whatever channel they assign us, yeah.
So we still won't have.
We won't have any say over that at that point in time. Next. I can't have answered all of them, here we go.
I just wanted to bring up when you talk about the outlets, you talk about cable, just as a review for the audience, what markets are we in right now on cable? I remember I've had people call me from Springfield, hey, I was able to watch this last night, and in Champaign. Is that the same thing? Is that growing for us, is it shrinking for us?
The whole cable world is shrinking slightly, and that's for everybody. Cable use is down a little bit. Again, the millennials are more disconnected. As far as what systems we're on now, that really hasn't changed. Obviously, it changes a lot if you go away because you're on none. If we move and are repacked, theoretically, we would be on the same systems. Must carry would still apply in the same areas as it does now. So there shouldn't be a major effect if we're talking about repacking. Yes. Oh, what are we up to now? Ken, you probably have that. 22?
And the Sligo and the Vigo project and a million plus.
There's no way to actually rebuild that sort of penetration with some sort of cable.
No, because you have no must-carry opportunity, no carry at all at that point in time, because you're not truly a broadcaster. So yeah, that would go away. We'd have to find other ways to reach people there and beyond. I mean, in an internet world, obviously you're talking a worldwide audience, but that's just a different way of doing things than we've done before.
Would you talk a little bit about the possibility of channel sharing?
Indeed. Channel sharing is a chance for 2, maybe 3 stations to actually share that 6 megahertz frequency. Both of them would appear on your TV, just as they do now. There'd be a slight difference in, technically, I guess, in the quality, since you're sharing, you know, your signal will now be 3 megahertz. But most likely what would happen is those of us that are airing digital channels, in our case, megahertz and then .6, where we have a feed of the radar and hit mix. And in the case of other commercial stations, there are feeds such as, you know, WEIU-TV and Cozy TV and that kind of thing. They would most likely go away, but you could have a couple of channels shared by one transmitter. So we, and again, WABC in Effingham or whatever, if it doesn't exist, we would all feed our signal to one transmitter. It would go out from there. In a larger metropolitan area, there is going to be a ton of that. In New York City, there's a lot of money to be made for stations channel sharing and then giving up some frequencies. A little tougher in our case because we would need to find a station that really covers our area, covers our city of license. Not impossible. You've got Decatur, we've got obviously Champaign and Urbana, some stations there that would do it. But that is an opportunity. Most likely it's something that would happen once the auction is done. We'll have a short period of time, a couple months, to put together any plans that we might be able to put together at that point in time. But yeah, it is an option. Yes?
So the channel sharing, kind of where with the digital, you get the -2, -3, -4.
Right.
Okay, so
You would probably be sacrificing some of those, I would think, because you just don't have the spectrum. Yes?
If we don't enter the auction and need to reconfigure the frequency, what's the estimated cost to us?
again, if we don't enter the auction and are just repacked, the FCC, well, mostly 90% will be paid for by the government. The other 10% being a public broadcaster will be paid for by CPB. So our cost, direct cost for the transmitter and that would be zero. That'd be taken care of.
That is if we do enter the auction, right?
If we do enter the auction, or if we don't enter the auction, the only time that wouldn't be paid is if we voluntarily decide that we'll change frequency for a lower amount of money, then that's our expense at that point in time.
How much would that cost?
$1.5 million, maybe two, probably in a guess. It's hard to guess, but I mean, I would argue probably, and Dennis, you can correct, $1.5 million-ish, a little beyond that.
Somewhere between there too, depending on how high the rates of the tower and crews start going, once it gets underway.
Yeah. And that is really, there's been some discussion really recently about that. Right now, it would be $1.5 million or so. Those rates, when you, and literally, I'm not exaggerating, there are only 15 or 16 high tower crews in the country, and this is not what cell tower crews do. This is very different. So their rates are going to go up a lot. And in fact, if you have kids that don't mind heights, you might want to get a new crew. Might be another academic program.
New major.
There you go, new major, high tower climbing. Yes.
What about WEIU and SIU? Are they in the same situation we are?
Technically, yep, they are indeed. There's a slight difference with WILL because their frequency is low enough that there's not a lot of interest. There's not a lot of incentive to move them. All of the other UHF stations in our markets, commercial, absolutely, they're all involved. Involvement is their choice. They're affected. We'll be doing something. Next. Got any more? Yes.
Maybe have you talked to any of your counterparts out there on the television stations?
What's that? I've done.
Sorry, have you talked to your counterparts at any other public television stations? You know, if any of them claims to be a citizen?
Have I talked to them? There is a, well, you wouldn't believe how much. It's somebody knows. A lot of discussion, not a lot of honesty going back and forth right now. Because obviously, you know, if I tell them what I'm doing, I could get less money. So therefore, you know, so you really don't know. And in some cases, it really is coming down to, in our case, you know, a board. If you're a community licensee, you know, you've got a board of directors, and so it's sort of out of the hands of staff at that point. And the real, to me, the big unknown is it goes way beyond public broadcasters. When you start talking commercial world, well, there is a huge incentive. If you're a mom and pop and you're barely getting by and you're scraping, this is a real opportunity. If you're a religious broadcaster, again, great opportunity. Right before I came over here, I was checking on some markets not too far away from here, and an announcement there that some of the, probably most of the UHF local commercial stations announced they're in. So there is a lot of involvement. I think what the FCC did with setting amazingly high opening bid prices did exactly what they wanted it to do. Is, you know, if you're in Charleston, Illinois, and somebody's going to give you $105 million, what are you going to? You're going to think about it, and that's what they wanted to have happen. And I'm sure what they're hoping is that as the actual bids come in and the numbers fall, you'll have stations that, well, we'll stay in at one more round, and say, well, we'll stay in at one more round, so see how it plays out for them.
Do you have any kind of best guess estimate where you think that actually will fall? I mean, obviously it's not going to be $105 million.
Not in a public surrounding, I don't have a best guess. That has been all over the board, and you know, we talk about me talking to my counterparts, and that has been going on for about a year and a half. And I've gone from the people who said, wow, that's a good idea, to the people who said, have you lost your mind? Your transmitter's in a cornfield. And, you know, who really knows? The FCC, they really haven't decided what they're going to do yet. What their decision is going to be based on what happens Tuesday. when they get whatever the collection of stations that are going to decide to be involved, when they see what that mass is and start running it through their software and their computers, they're going to decide what they want to do and where they want to go. At that point in time, they might start thinking about what it's going to cost them, but we won't know literally until after it's all done. Sorry, I couldn't help. Yes? How long? How long have we known about it? Let's see, Congress decided a little over a couple of years ago that they were charging the FCC with creating this opportunity to free up spectrum and to put money in the coffers in Washington, obviously. So it started then, it has been evolving since then, and literally there were many, many months in this process that everything was changing daily. And so, and we still don't really know how the auction is going to happen. We know when it is scheduled to start. We know what our opening bid is, we think, or would be. It'll be that or zero, most likely. The actual structure of it, we don't know that yet. So it's been a long process that's going to take many more months to work itself out. Who was blindsided? Oh, okay. No, it's been, again, in a local paper, no. I mean, it wouldn't be something because this is just sort of come up here locally here now. But the process of this happening has been in the national news for a year and a half, probably. As a representative of the university, I certainly have known, yeah, and I've been following it and working it through. There really has been nothing to do, unfortunately, until now. Until we really knew more of what the process was, what the number, you know, the opening bid price would be, and started working through that. There wasn't a whole lot to do. I would like to have had more, but again, it's a very changing process with it together. Anything else? Yes.
Since you're going to have to move from Fifth to Inwood,
Right.
and I assume that if you participate in the auction, then is it possible that you sell your spectrum and you make your 10 million, 15 million, and it only costs 2 million and you determine that keeping the broadcast facility is worthwhile, is that an option that you could get another channel assigned?
It's always an option, but not too likely. My guess is, and that's all this is, that when the commission starts reapportioning and repacking, they're not going to leave a lot of open space. That would sort of defeat the whole purpose of doing this. So they're most likely not going to leave a lot of open frequencies in too many markets. So when it's over, it's probably over. Yeah, it'll be sort of fish or cut bait time, as Daddy used to say. Anything else? Yes.
I know there's a lot of people watching WEIU-TV, probably not that many donors. I know there's probably a lot of donors. Is there a number that we have, like people that are donating?
I would love to actually, before I answer that, ask you, how many are members of WEIU? Excellent. Excellent. Now, depending on where you go in the country, that number could be between 10% of the population on the low end, on the high end. This is over that, and I know it's interested parties here, so I give that. But that's a very, very impressive number. Thank you. As far as numbers of members, we're at about 1,000 right now. That's a big increase. We're one of the biggest membership growth stations in the country. We started low, obviously, and for a lot of years, that really wasn't the focus that we had here at the station. But 5-6 years ago, we decided it was, and we've added again around 1,000. So, right, Jana? Yeah, around 1,000. That's pretty impressive. And again, that really, to me, says that we're doing a good job with that dual mission of 1, serving the academic community, serving our students, 2, serving our actual larger community. So thank you for the question. Appreciate that. Is there questions? I'd love to hear some comments too. Yes.
I think this is probably for President Glassman.
All right, I'll get out of the way.
No, it's all.
It's
Who will
yours.
make the decision whether we auction or not?
Decision will be made by the Board of Trustees and myself.
Okay, and when will that decision be made? I'm assuming that requires a vote, and that's part of it.
We would have to make a decision by late March or whenever the auction actually began.
Well, I thought you had to decide by January 12th.
That's when the silent phase comes in. Whether you're in or out, you have all the way until late March before, or the auction itself has been delayed in the past, but that's where it is right now. So until that date, we would have the opportunity to discuss it.
So we're in on Tuesday, or we're not in on Tuesday?
I can't tell you. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not Tuesday.
I know, but will a decision be made by Tuesday? I mean, does
A
the-
decision will have to be made on Tuesday to file so that you are eligible to be in the auction, but you have until the auction starts to determine whether you want to be in it or not. And so I won't know till Tuesday whether we will be even eligible, and then we'll go from there.
Who decides what all?
That would be me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
So you talked a little bit about the majority of your audience being 65 and older.
Okay.
And you've also talked about, going to Facebook and streaming. Is there a backup plan for reaching then the 65 and older audience if you don't broadcast the signal?
If we do that? With the locally produced programming, yeah, I mean, with the locally produced programming, that would be looking to more of a relationship with cable, more of a relationship with the local cable companies, Mediacom and Consolidated. Consolidated, we have a very good relationship now, so that is an option. As far as PBS, the backup, as I said, is other stations. We would not be a PBS conduit at that point in time. Will some people go away if that happens? Yes. There is just no way around it. That would be one of the costs of being involved, is some portion of that audience wouldn't be able to get our signal some way. It's sad, but again, it's a game of choices right now.
Where would your future funding come from then? Would you start selling, advertise, if you're not gonna be granted, if you're not gonna be a CBP granted, which covers some of your costs?
Right.
Where will your revenue?
Expenses change a lot at that point in time, because if you're only producing your local content, your expenses, that everything we put into for PBS, for program acquisition from other national and international areas, that all goes away. Maintenance for transmission facilities, which is not inexpensive, that goes away. So, and some of our activities would probably be different here. We haven't gotten too far down that road yet, because decision hasn't been made. But there would be a necessity to find the funding from some additional sources at that point in time. So that's something that certainly worries people like me that sit here and want to continue doing what it is we do, and making sure that we can pay to keep the people that need to do it, and the equipment operating that needs to be used to edit it and that kind of thing. Yes.
This question probably more for Dr. Rocky.
Okay.
You talked about the commitment will remain for the students and the makers that we have and everything, even if we lose the broadcast aspect. But other than the fact that we could actually get an experience in broadcasting, what would the actual impact be in those areas?
That's where I'm trying to ascertain, and we're trying to ascertain right now, and that's why we're talking to people and listening to students and listening to our alums and listening to those who have been out in the field to see what their opinions are relative to what is that added value from having that broadcast element to their WEIU or to their EIU education. And so that's a valuable aspect that we have to be looking into. We have a commitment to the education of our students, and we have a commitment to their education in those particular programs. And whether it is done in the exact same way that it's done right now, or it's done in some alternative way, we anticipate and we're committed to doing it at the state-of-the-art level.
Okay, but what about requirements as they're stated, will those have to change? Do we have, like, basically, if you have a freshman that starts this year, now, does everything we've done so far go away, or the plans go away?
Well, producing and doing the various network productions that are taking place right now would not change. It's just the delivery of them and the format in which they're delivered that would be changed. So they would have the same experiences relative to that, but they would not have the added value, and that's what I keep hearing from people, the added value that I was working and learning at a station that had a broadcast network. Relative to designing, producing, developing, writing, and everything else that's associated with content delivery, that would be the same. I think Jack mentioned that pretty clearly. So the educational experience would remain the same. However, they would not have that added value of saying, and I'm doing things live, and it's going across a broadcast network, and I can't take it back. It's out there. And that's a big learning experience in and of itself, that they believe, that many students believe, that is really helping me to prepare and to make me more competitive in the market of broadcasting. Yeah.
I'd like to echo off that statement. I'm a WEIU alum, former WEIU employee, I'm a WEIU member, EIU alum twice. So I think Blake would agree with me when I stand up and say that absolutely that experience is not the same when it's not going on there. Exactly what you said. When it goes online, we can't take it back. That's something that's real world, and you can't get that. That's the only reason I chose to use Small University. You're going to lose hundreds of students, thousands of tuition dollars, and people that aren't going to do this program anymore that doesn't exist, of course. Also, when you talk about WEIU, EIU is in the call letters. What a tremendous stage for Eastern Illinois University. I mean, you can't get away without saying that WEIU and EIU are one and the same. So what a tremendous stage for Eastern Illinois University. If you take that away, if you don't have that broadcast experience anymore, it's gone. And that stage for Eastern Illinois University is gone. That experience for the students is gone. And that real world, real life, theory to practice is gone. It's invaluable to students. I owe a lot of my career to it as well. So that's what I would say.
Thank you for your comment.
I'd also like to, I'm sorry, I'd like to add on to that. I teach broadcast technology here at WEIU. Over the last 10 years, I've developed this program, and then every single year I take my students to the National Radio Association where we have professional broadcasters critique our students. They expect us, over the last 3 years, to be at the conference because they want to see the new product that's coming out of Eastern. Eastern is in the spotlight across the nation, and we have a new student that's interested, a high school student that is in San Diego who will be coming to Eastern because of this opportunity that he cannot find in other institutions. He Google searched and didn't go just to the first page. This program is on the 7th page. He visited with Naircheck, fabulous talent, and so he's coming here. And we want more of that, and the opportunity cannot change broadcast quality.
Thank you.
Nor can you win those awards if you're not on air.
Exactly.
So the awards don't no longer apply if they're not aired. You can put them on the web or whatever, but those awards no longer are available to our students if we don't air over the air live.
Oh, I just want to say, I actually interviewed that student from San Diego's mom because she was walking around in one of the buildings, and she was so proud. She was saying how great this program was, and that she's so happy that he's going here.
That's wonderful to
You
hear.
guys really
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
To bounce off that, I'm a current broadcast student in NASCOM, and I'm also worried about the broadcasting aspect being taken away, because that is real world experience and real life experience that is like uniquely ours, and to take that away, then I'm sure I worry about not just current students like myself that are in this, and they're like, what's going to, why do they take this away? It's such a good opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah.
This idea of not maybe doing the broadcast part, we're talking how it affects us here in the US, but how does it affect our students who would still have this opportunity in other countries? So if we don't do this, the whole world doesn't run like the US, right? When it comes to having TV stations and broadcasts. So this experience here is going to translate around the world, right? Whereas if we went on with just reading, etc., and other countries I know is near getting to all of that, they would lose out on.
Yeah, I'm not really an expert as, on the international elements of broadcast journalism or broadcast content delivery, but I'm assuming that you're correct. I don't know how many of our students have gone international with their careers. I'm sure that there must be some, but I'm not sure that we are a large provider. We certainly have great placement of our students who complete our programs and that have involved WEIU, and so we certainly admire that, and I certainly do personally. Yeah, sure.
How many students are majoring or minoring in broadcasting? What's the research? When do you get those numbers?
I don't have that information offhand. I'm looking at our provost. He doesn't have that information offhand. It is certainly something that we can look up very carefully, and we could even see the trends, whether communication has been moving down in enrollment or up in enrollment. It certainly is something that we look at across the campus, but I can't recall off the top of my head. I don't know if there's anybody here who has the accurate numbers in there. There might be some anecdotal, but I don't know if anybody has the accurate numbers, unless they're Glenn, you're the dean. Is that? I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
There's about 50 or so broadcast makers and comm studies, and maybe 10 or so students in journalism who have a concentration.
So about 60 students. And if we looked at 5 years ago, would it have been more or would it have been less? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, well, that would be broadcast news. We've got one mass comm studies for 120 or so.
That's your entire option, but if you break down the concentration.
Yeah, so broadcast news is about 50 or 60.
The mass comm, which is two concentrations, broadcast and electronic media is not 100%.
Okay. So we'd have to look at the last 5-10 years and see what the trends would have been.
I just have a comment. It seems to me at a time when we're struggling for enrollments and we've been talking about how can we market the university and what positives do we have to offer, having our broadcast news station that wins Emmy Awards and has a staff that puts so much of their effort into helping our students get internships and jobs, many of which are big names, 2020 and ESPN and SportsCenter, these are big names. It just seems like maybe the worst time at Eastern to try to take a program like that and say, let's get rid of it.
Well, I'll take it one step further if I could, and that is we have this incredible nationally recognized broadcast journalism, WEIU facility on our campus with 50 or 60 students majoring on it. We should have 500 students majoring on it. So if you are an alum and you are fighting for the continuation of this great program, of which it will continue, I guarantee you that, but help us by putting that word out nationally and using social media and anything else, and if you're on broadcast it. We would love to have 300-400 students interested in broadcast journalism, and if we had those students, I would find the staffing resources to provide for it, because I know there's faculty going here. We are stretched as much as we can. Well, I've told students, I've told academic departments across our university, you bring the students, I'll find the resources. And so here's a great model. You're saying this is the best thing we have to offer. It's a premier program. of our university. Well, I want to see 200, 300 students coming from the nation saying, I'm coming here. We've got one from San Diego. Let's get many, many more, and I think that would be wonderful. I'm not saying that this is predicated on any of the discussion today, but it certainly is a message that I've been giving our faculty, and I've been giving our marketing people, and I've been giving our anybody who will listen to me. We've got a premier program. We've got to get students to know about it and to come here for it. Kind of a little offside, but that's part of my passion is to bring students in here, and that's.
Of something that makes us stand out. You said, one of you said, I'm sorry, which you're in the middle of the cornfields. We have to have things that draw people to Charleston, and this broadcast, the summer internships, which I know haven't been held for several years, but they did bring people across the country, and we had premier students coming in for that, and so I just hate to see, to even consider not having a broadcast station anymore to me seems like we're going in the wrong direction.
But our discussion today, I want everybody to know, is not predicated on the enrollment of our broadcast. We're talking about a much very different discussion, so I'm almost sorry I moved in that direction, but any opportunity to encourage you to bring students to Eastern, I find that as my responsibility. There was a couple other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I strongly believe that if we participate in this process, we're not gonna have a chance to get 2 or 3 other people to come in with broadcast news. And so the easiest way to get to that number is to decide not to file on Tuesday, and then start right away to recruit people to come in for that.
Well, we're recruiting as best as we can, that's for sure, but we need help from everybody. Everybody's a part of the recruitment efforts of Eastern. Our alums, our community, our friends, our family.
Cameron said we're on the 7th page of Google search, and we're still getting people. Imagine if we actually put the time to recruit people and put this as the face of Eastern Illinois University. How many people we can get to do that? And if we're waffling between choosing to shut off the station and not shut off the station, how many we can get to go?
Thank you. Yeah, Larry.
I don't think we could even begin to trust both the state and the federal legislatures in this country. I'm dead serious on that. The state isn't funding education, and neither is the federal government doing the people's business either, stealing their Social Security for decades now, and the state here not funding for decades. So I'm against going wrong with it too, for that reason.
Thank you. Thank you. Other comments that you'd like to share? These are all very, very valuable. Yeah.
My understanding of the auction process was there's 3 numbers given. One was to weekly drop the spectrum. One was to move to a low VHF, and one was to move to a high VHF. Are those options separate? Are they all happening at the same time? Because it would seem to me if you could enter one, keep the broadcast, enter one, and come out with several $1 million more than enough to pay for transfer, you come out ahead. You can't have everything.
There's only one auction that WEIU can be involved in at this time, and that's the reverse auction with the FCC making the purchase if they wished to. We don't have to be a part of the auction at all. If we're not part of the auction, we won't, as it's been explained many times, we won't stay on the same frequency that we're on now. We'll be repackaged somewhere else. But that's the only auction. We're not in an auction to purchase another area or anything else. It's just the one.
Well, on the FCC,
Because the FCC is going to sell them once they purchase them. That's the whole idea. The FCC wants to get them for the lowest amount of money that they can get, and then sell them back to the private industry for the highest amounts that they can receive. That's the nature of this auction. Yeah. Oh, sure.
This, yes, there are 3 numbers. Each station will have 3 numbers for the same auction, but yes, you have a choice of either at one number, you go away. At another number, you move to a lower UHF, and then third number, you go to VHF. The problem with that is, as I was talking before, if you make the choice to move to a lower, and you decide to do that, we pay the freight of doing that. So therefore, the number that comes in, whatever you sell for, as President Glassman says, is going to have to, one, it'll be a lot lower than just going off the air. And it will have to accommodate the fact that we're gonna have to spend the money to put in the transmitter together, that kind of thing. Having said that, if we were to file and say, you know, we will look at our options, we would file to include all three options so that, you know, if we were involved, we would have all of those opportunities. Because again, if you file, and if you don't file to include all of them, you can never get back in. That's sort of the downside of all of this. If you do it, you've got to go, you know, full bore, if you will, and say, yeah, give me all of the numbers and we'll see, and play itself out. But yes, that would exist. And depending on where the station is located, most likely, again, we have no idea what the numbers are going to shake out as. That has probably a lot more appeal if you're in a larger metropolitan area to do that, because your numbers are going to come in pretty high. And I'm guessing that's all this is. My assumption is by the time the number that would come in to somebody like us, and then you drop it to, what, 40%, I think is the number to the first block, I believe. And then you start paying your own expense to put your own transmission plant back. Probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. But it would be one that we would certainly consider if we were in. So, didn't mean to jump in. Okay.
Hey, you took over that.
Boy, and I liked the break too, you know, it was pretty good. Oh. What else?
Why can't we just use the same transmitter? I'm technologically.
And again, I will defer to Dennis if he wants into. There's a small range of frequencies that they will work on, and being on 50, you're going to be able to, you know, retool that to maybe mid-40s, high 40s, and that's going to be gone.
Really, your antenna is very specifically tuned to your channel. The line going up there is very specifically tuned to your channel. And you've got a little leeway, maybe a little above, or maybe a half channel or a whole channel if you bought it that way. But we're going to be moving so far that all of that will probably be useless.
Sure. Believe me, it's just one little piece of a ton of this that is understandable, if you will. Yes?
Can you tell me how Eastern's opportunities in having a broadcast channel associated with us versus other state universities?
Very good question. There are a fair number. I think nationally there were on the order of 122 universities that have public television stations. And that sounds like a large number, and it is, but that leaves a larger number that doesn't. And, you know, it's something that has been unique to us, no question. And that's something that, as we've heard tonight, obviously has made a difference in the lives and careers of a number of students. And that's important to consider. Having said that, some of the universities that don't have TV stations with them do well too. You know, I mean, the Medill School in Northwestern and Newhouse at Syracuse, you know, where I worked for a number of years, they've done well too. So the bottom line is, I think that each one of these stations, each one of these public broadcasters associated with universities is very much a unique entity, and we have all sort of developed our own niche programs probably. I'm really proud of what we've done here, but it doesn't mean that, you know, we can't make it bigger and better, however that ends up being. So, yes?
More in the state of Illinois.
In the state of Illinois, Southern, obviously U of I, what else? Western, yeah, Western, that's right, keep forgetting about Western, and us.
And we have AU, which are thinking about it.
They would not, again, we're down to sharing information that they would not share with me, but.
I mean, we're having public forums, or I mean, this is.
Oh, are they having?
So, I mean, I'm just curious, are they thinking about changing or not? I mean, we would not.
Everybody is, you know, taking a look at what's out there. Are they having the forums? Not that I'm aware of. I think I know a lot of stations are not having the openness that we're having here at Eastern. Some are, but a number of them have not had this kind of an event, especially continuing on as this process continues. So no, I have not heard of, in the state of Illinois, any kind of input at all from the other universities of what they're doing.
I really should know that, because sort of based on before it was dark.
So would I. But again, anti-collusion sort of kicks that out of, if that information were to be shared, it would be a real problem with the commission, unfortunately. Sadly. Yeah, because technically we're competing with them in the FCC's eyes. Technically, these are all Spectrum, and it, you know, and Spectrum does, everything interacts, if you will. You know, U of I, we're in the same market as University of Illinois, so for these two stations to sit and make a decision that, well, you're going to sell, we're not, that would be an issue for somebody in Washington somewhere. I tend to agree. Who else do we have?
Was the, talk about the in-town transmitter change, does that have any market value? Change that out?
Probably not in this country, because there will be no more TV transmitters using channel 50. So is there an opportunity to sell in South America? I've done that before in other situations, but it almost becomes, since this is not the newest transmitter in the world, and in that respect it's working out well for us, probably either way we change, probably not a huge market for it, but something we would certainly take a look at. Anyone else? Any other comments?
We can have a test on this information.
Pardon?
We can have a test on this
I tell you, I feel like I've been through more exams than I went through in years of school. This is, you know, and the real problem, again, since it changes literally daily in some cases, you think you know what's going on, then you have a meeting like this with a bunch of folks, and you go back and you're like, oh no, that's different, I just told them. So you may not have a test, but I will. Oh, who am I missing? Yes, go for it.
Television gives you such a wide audience that we're here in the Midwest.
Yep.
And you're going to lose that if they are successful to do all this. It's a wonderful medium. You never know what young mind is watching
Very true.
at various times, scattered throughout the Midwest. It could be in our counties here, who will be inspired and go on and do something great for the nation and the world.
Very true. Well, you would be preaching to the choir of 42 years in broadcasting, so I would agree with that. And as far as TV signals and flatland, absolutely, it does a lot. But you don't, it's technology. The one thing I have learned in that 42 years is the technology is changing quickly. So, perfect world, we would hold on to all of it and create new technologies as we go. Probably isn't going to be what happens.
But there are people here that's been here years ago. They're scattered all over the world.
Right.
I'm here in Paris, in all the different nations of the world.
And as my younger son's a whole lot younger than I am, they talk to those folks around the world, but they're using online sources. So that they sit there and look at me as being the broadcaster saying, geez, Dad, you can't get that signal more than 50 miles? What's wrong with you? I'm talking to Germany today. So it depends. So I agree with you as a broadcaster, but it's just a constantly changing world of technology, obviously. Yes?
I'd just like to make a comment. I work at WEIU and I love working for Eastern and WEIU, and I just want to say on behalf of us, it's great to see the turnout here tonight. It really speaks volumes of you care, and so that's awesome that you're helping.
And I really share what Jana says, and thank you, Jana, for bringing that up. When this first came up, this whole idea, Dr. Glassman brought up, let's have this and see what turns up and what we learn and what information we can gain and gather to move forward. I didn't know, and honestly, I was sort of worried. What if 5 people show up? That doesn't say good things about what we're doing. This is amazing. They had to bring out extra chairs so that we could accommodate everybody. That really, as a guy who's been in this business and is in this station now for almost 6 years, I feel really good about that. You folks are a very caring group of people, and however this goes, and who knows? Luckily, I don't get a vote. It's okay. But however it goes, I feel really good that we're going to be serving these communities that we've talked about and talked to. That makes me feel good. It isn't every station out there, and especially in the commercial world, where that's the decision that they're making. And most of the decisions in some stations are, how much can we take home with us from all of this? We're sitting here talking about how are we going to serve the students? How are we going to serve the members? How are we going to serve these people in our community that don't have any other way to get this information? That's pretty cool. And trust me that whether it's with a broadcast transmitter or a yet-to-be-developed, some gadget that you plug into whatever somewhere, we will be accomplishing what we need to accomplish. Any other thoughts? Didn't mean to get on my high horse there.
How many faculty and staff are currently employed at WEIU?
Oh, right now, as far as on the staff side, we're about 12. Did I hear? Yeah, I thought I saw that.
I know you've heard from some alumni here tonight, but I encourage both you, President Glassman, to look at some of the videos that are on social media of alumni working all around the country.
You guys have done a good
I've already
job.
done that, on the Facebook page. I've looked at all of them that have been there for the last, today, all the way till about half hour before coming over here. So I really am interested.
A testament to the video skills you learned right here.
But that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, you guys are good.
That's why I wanted to have this forum.
I work at WEIU as well. I'm a publicity promotion specialist for WEIU. And a number of you raised your hand and said that your viewers, your members, your students, alumni, if you have not connected with us via social media or our website or sent us emails, again, remember the deadline is March 29th, and you can continue giving us feedback through those sources, and we want to be able to hear from you. So go out and like our pages and send us emails and continue giving us that feedback. And show us your support if that's what you're willing to do.
It's important, Kiana's so right, it's important that the quiet period, and it is legitimate, it's for us. You know, us up here, we can't talk, but we sure can listen, and I'm hoping that I hear a lot of things to listen to. And these decisions will be made down the road, but there is plenty of opportunity to hear what we need to hear. Yes?
You know, I was doing a little research on this, and it seems to me like there's a lot of consulting firms working with TV stations, just like this one, and walking through the auction, pre-bid, all that auction process. And I was wondering if WEIU has a consultant and what their fee, they're not going to do it for free.
Right.
How much money are they going to get WEIU up for? Because I mean, they said they'll really pay attention to some of the pre-bids, but there's
Right.
some stations in California that are expecting $600-700 million off this deal.
Right, the biggest will be about $600 million, basically stations in LA, some in San Francisco probably. There are consultants primarily in the commercial television world. Non-commercial, there are two folks that I know of who actually are former co-workers and friends of mine who are doing a little bit of that. There's also a gentleman with a software package that's trying to predict what the numbers the FCC comes up with will be. But most of the true consultants you're referring to are talking to commercial stations and group owners primarily, where they're really looking at what we're possibly selling 15 stations, that kind of thing. The numbers, yes, the numbers in LA, San Francisco, Washington, the Northeast Corridor will go through the roof. Washington, New York, Philadelphia, through there, probably through into Baltimore. Those will be significant numbers. And there is so much on the line there, especially commercial stations, but probably, I'm guessing, the non-commercial as well. I haven't talked to them, I don't know, and they wouldn't tell me anyway. Probably are using consultants to sort through that, because the numbers are high enough to justify the expense you're talking about. In my case, to this point, we have not had a consultant analyze any of this. I think we're in just a different, we have a different set of priorities than the commercial folks that are really into how much can we get out of that and what's our profit and loss, and what's that compare with what we can sell with the number of eyeballs that will watch a newscast on a typical Monday through Friday. So again, bottom line, we haven't spent a penny on that. Next, yes.
I have a lot of journalism majors here. There's some good stuff being written in the major newspapers about this, in the editorial parts. And essentially what they say, unfortunately, is the television's over. We're going somewhere else at this point.
Yep. We've been hearing
what
that.
they largely suggest is don't eat the seed corn. hold on to what you got. It's gonna get more and more important as we go along. And I think that's good advice. I agree with you.
And again, it's what's being considered, I know, by the president. It's advice that he will be considering along with all of it.
Can they just remove the license?
Can they just take it away arbitrarily? Yeah, they could if they wanted to.
So
Well,
if
they've
we
got
did-
public interest, necessity, and convenience.
Right, absolutely. I know.
And that's serious, of course.
Exactly, and if we did enough things wrong, they would do that, and they have done that. They have revoked licenses from TV and radio stations historically. That's happened, and a lot of fines have happened in the past. We talk about that all the time.
If we don't enter the option and then.
Oh, no,
bad enough,
no,
could-
there's no penalty.
No, but I mean, could they just say, well, sorry, we still need your space, so thanks for not playing, but we're gonna take it anyway?
They're taking it anyway. It's just whether they were packaged.
Right, they will take these frequencies.
Okay. So
Right.
no matter what, they're.
No matter what, they're taking our
Right.
spectrum, but
We would go somewhere else. They can't just say, well, we want all of it, and you can't be a TV station anymore.
That's my question. That
Yeah,
was
they
my
can't do
question.
that.
Thank you.
There you
I
go.
didn't ask it correctly, but that was exactly. what I
Not a
was-
problem. Did I see another hand? No? That it? Comments?
Thank you.
I will have you, sir.
thank you again for coming today. This has been very, very valuable to me and valuable, I think, to everybody sitting here, to listening to everybody else's comments and so on. Certainly, there's a lot of components and moving parts and everything else. As I said, we are committed to our students, we're committed to our community, and everything will be taken into consideration. You can be sure of that, and I appreciate all the input that you provided today. So thanks again, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks. You're spending up there,
I know, I mean. Never seen it.
Got some dull listening tonight, huh?
Oh, man.